Hi there. My name is Kitty Boitnott of Boitnott Coaching, or Kitty at careermakeover.coachesconsole.com. I'm glad that you're here. It means that you're exploring the possibility that you may be feeling some of the 7 signs of teacher burnout. If you are, you're not alone. I talk to people every day who are experiencing some level. They're somewhere on the continuum. And I have experienced it myself. So I know how it feels, and I know it's not a lot of fun. I also know there's hope, that there is a way out of the feeling of being stuck in a career that no longer lights you up or makes you as happy as it used to. So what I want to offer today is a presentation that I've worked up. It's a training on, first of all, what are the 7 symptoms, in case you haven't seen my free guide that offers what the 7 questions are that you need to be able to answer as to whether or not you're experiencing the symptoms, and then some suggestions on what you might be able to do about it. So what I'd like to do is switch over to my screen where my presentation is being housed, and we will get started. So, 7 signs of teacher burnout. Like I said, my name is Kitty Boitnott. If you're not familiar with me, if we haven't had a chance to talk yet, I would love to talk with you about what you are experiencing. But here's what I know based on my experience of my own personal sense of burnout and the many, many conversations I've had with teachers over the course of the last few years having to do with their own level of burnout. Starting with the idea that you're in the right place right now if you are able to answer any of the following questions with a yes. There's 7 questions. The first one is, do you find yourself dreading going to work, feeling anxious or depressed on Sunday night before having to get up and go to work on Monday morning? If you can say yes to that, and it's not just the occasional phenomenon, but a regular occurrence, then you may be experiencing teacher burnout. Do you feel stuck and unhappy because you don't see room for advancement or promotion? Unless, of course, you want to try to become a principal, and frankly, that isn't the route that should be for everyone. There aren't a lot of other aspects of promotion, however, beyond the administrative route. So you may feel like you've gotten as far as you're going to be able to go, and there isn't any room for any more advancement. If the answer to that is yes, then you may be experiencing burnout. Question 3, do you feel that you have control over your classroom and your curriculum? Or do you feel that all of the major decisions are made for you and you must comply or else? That has been a problem for a lot of people, the sense of not even being able to make your own lesson plans or do anything fun because you have to stay on the pacing guide. And Lord knows if you're not on the right page, when an administrator walks through, there can be all sorts of trouble that can be caused. So is yes an answer for that question? What about number 4? Do you feel disillusioned because teaching just isn't what you thought it would be? Some teachers feel this way, especially if you're in that 3 to 5 year range. You may be feeling like, well, this wasn't what I thought I was signing up for. Now, for those of you who've been teaching longer than that, maybe 15 or 20 years, you'll remember when it was fun. Before all of the standardization, all of the emphasis on testing, when you actually had some control over what you were allowed to teach because you had some flexibility and you were trusted as a professional to make certain decisions for yourself. But a lot of that's gone away. So maybe if you're a beginning teacher and you don't remember those days, maybe you just realize it isn't exactly what you thought it would be. Question 5, are you having trouble with sleep because you're worried about your finances, your students, or just a general sense of overwhelm because, again, it's not a lot of fun these days? Question 6, are you lacking the energy and drive you need in order to be consistently productive and effective on the job. That's a problem for a lot of people who are experiencing the lack of energy, the lack of enthusiasm, the lack of excitement about their job anymore. And finally, question 7, are you having physical issues such as headaches, backaches, gastrointestinal issues, or other ailments that may be stress-related and causing you to feel sick a lot of the time or most of the time, and you just don't have any energy anymore? If you could answer yes to any one of those 7 questions, you are possibly experiencing some level of burnout. And I have had people tell me, I answered yes to all 7. Now what? Well, first of all, I want you to take care of your stress. So I want to offer you a free book. This is a book I wrote, was published on Amazon about a year ago, a little over a year ago now. And I want you to have it for free. So all you have to do is text 44222 and then type in the message box the word, without any spaces and without the quotes, stress ebook. So type 44222 as a text message, and then in the message box, type the word stress and then ebook, no spaces and no quotes. You will be asked for your email address, but in return for the email address, you get this free book where I offer 7 strategies for trying to minimize your stress and some strategies for trying to deal with the overwhelm. But that's just a start. What I want you to know is that if you are, in fact, a teacher who is experiencing the pain and the heartache and the disillusionment of job burnout, you do not have to stay stuck there. You do not have to suffer. You do not have to stay in a job that you don't love, because you are the architect of your own life and your own career. You get to make the decision whether or not you stay where you're unhappy and miserable, or whether you make a change towards something that might be a better fit for you now that you've grown professionally and know more about yourself. If you are experiencing burnout, you may be part of an unhappy group of Americans, according to one Gallup poll, which came out in January of 2013. And the reason that's important is that 2013 was about the time that I was in the middle of my own career transition. And I was looking for work, and I had just turned 60. I looked around me and saw a lot of people my age and looking for work. And I thought, you know what? I'm not sure I want to join this group of folks. The Gallup poll that I'm talking about was one that revealed that 70% of Americans either hated their job or they were just disengaged, which is where the whatever comes from. Disengaged is in bored and just going through the motions. And when I heard that statistic at a networking event where I was amongst many other job seekers, I remember thinking to myself, I do not want to be saddled with another job and a final job for me, probably, that I would hate. I've been lucky in my career. I loved most of the work that I've done. It's been hard, but most of the time I really enjoyed my work. I was excited about going to school. And in fact, that Sunday night phenomena, I never experienced that. I was lucky. I never had that sense. But I heard people in my school talking about crying the night before. Now, part of the reason was that some of them were young mothers, and they were torn about leaving their babies on Monday morning. And they cried, in some cases, all Monday morning because of their separation anxiety, being away from their newborns or their young toddlers. So I didn't have that phenomena, but I did know that I didn't want to start a new job at the age of 60 that I was likely to hate, which is when I decided it was time to make a change. What I want to suggest for you is that if you're here, if you're listening to my voice right now, it may be that you've come to a particular crossroads in your career, and it may be that it's time for you to either lead or leave. It's time for you to perhaps stay, or maybe it really is time for you to go. And nobody can tell you that but yourself, but you know at some level, or you wouldn't be here. Now, the reason I said it's time for you to think about leading or leaving is that statistically, teacher leaders generally feel more empowered and they leave less often than teachers who are not engaged in some level of leadership in their building, in their union, their professional associations, or are on track to become administrators. So that's why I say if you decide to lead, then you may feel less stuck, less like a victim of circumstance, and you might feel more empowered. Having said that, leadership isn't for everybody. And it's possible that you may just need to decide it's time to cut your losses and move on. If you're not interested in the politics that goes along with the union leadership or the even administration, if you don't think there's politics going on in your central office, you're just not aware. There's politics in everything. So if you're not going to have a lot of patience with that, you're probably going to want to at least explore what your other options might be. So what I want to say to you is if you feel that you're ready to lead, you want to stay, you want to make a difference from within the profession, awesome. I applaud you. We need fantastic teachers. We need teachers who want to be with kids, which is why I do what I do. I don't want burnt out teachers being with kids. If you're burnt out, more than likely your kids already know it. And they're not having any more fun than you are. So I want you to know that if you feel like it's time for you to leave, that's also okay. And I don't want you to feel guilty about it. It's just time for you to move on. I want you to know that you can do whatever you want. I've had people to say to me, well, I've been teaching for 20 years. What else can I do? There are lots of things you can do. In fact, you can do whatever you want. You just have to decide what that is. For myself, I reinvented and retooled and made over my entire career 3 years ago. That's why I call myself the career makeover coach. And I know if I can do it, you can too. There's nothing special about me, except that I just made a decision and then I went with it. So, in case you don't know me and don't know anything at all about me, here I am at a press conference a few years ago. I was a teacher and librarian for over 30 years. I served in 2 of the larger school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. From 2008 to 2012, I left the classroom and I went to be president of the Virginia Education Association. I was approached in 2007 about running for that position. And after a lot of reflection and personal thinking about what it was that I wanted to do, I wanted to try to make a difference. I had been a local leader and a leader at the state level. And I allowed myself to be convinced that I could make a difference as president of the VEA if I ran and won. And I ran and I won. I took office just as the economy was crashing in September of 2008. I had taken office on August 1st. And if you'll recall, the economy began to go down the toilet in September of 2008. We elected the new president, and we continued to lose jobs by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands. And in Virginia, at the VEA, we lost 5,000 members in the first year of my office. No fault of mine, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was my job to rally the troops, to keep teachers from feeling like everything was going to hell in a handbag. And I did that job. And I did it with everything I had. I put my heart and soul into that position. And I did it for 4 years, 2 full 2-year terms. I left in July of 2012, and I won't kid you, I was exhausted. I was experiencing my own burnout. In fact, I had become aware of my burnout in April of that last year of office. I thought, I'm running on fumes. I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to the classroom without some extra time off, but I didn't know how to work that out. I had foolishly promised my executive director that I would not leave my office at the VEA until the end of my term, which was July 31st. I was on track to go back to my school division, and they had offered me a job. The problem was they hadn't a library to give me, and the job that they offered me was a middle school English position. And I hadn't taught English since 1980, and I hadn't taught middle schoolers since 1980. And they took a lot out of me when I was young, and I thought, I'm not young anymore, and I don't have any energy to spare, and I don't want to learn new standards, and I don't want to be part of the testing regimen, and I don't want to do this. I won't feel like I've got the energy to do it. So, after a lot of heart search and crying, literally crying, I decided not to go back. I took some time off. I rested. I relaxed. I got myself rejuvenated. And in the meantime, since then, that was all in January, February of 2013 that I got back on track and started thinking about what kind of work to do. I reinvented myself. Now, I say that like I did it, boom, overnight. That didn't happen overnight. It took time. It was a process. But the fact of the matter is, just a little over 3 years after I incorporated Burnout Coaching, I am a professional career transition and job search coach who specializes. I'm one of the few, if maybe the only, coach who specializes in working with teachers. I'm also a certified life coach, a certified stress management coach, thus the book that I offered you a few minutes ago, and a holistic wellness coach. I offer presentations, workshops, seminars on stress management for teachers. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, I'm a professional speaker. I'm also a regular contributor to an online e-zine with an international reach by the title of careeralism.com. And I have an asterisk by that because I'd like to invite you to sign up for that resource for free to see if it might offer you some insight, some advice, resources for your own job search should you decide that you are ready to leave. Now, as I said, if you decide you want to lead and stay, I want to congratulate you. And if you're interested in union leadership or association leadership or advice on how to go about becoming an administrator, I can help you with that. But I have to be honest and tell you that this particular presentation is mostly for those who are ready to explore their options, whether they've decided to leave or not. Maybe you haven't decided. Maybe you're not sure what you want to do, but you do want to know what your options might be. And I think it's always a good thing to explore your options. Don't ever assume that you can't do something until you've looked into it, because assuming means that you don't know. And it may be easier than you think. Now, it may be harder than you think too, but you won't know unless you explore it. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. So let's talk a little bit about what it would take if you were to decide for you that it's time to leave. The first thing is you have to decide what it is that you want. You have to focus on what it is that's missing in your current professional life, and what is it that you really want to do. You need clarity. And for most of the people that I start my work with, that's what they lack. They know what they don't want to do anymore. They know what they never want to have to do again, but they're not nearly so clear about what it is that they want moving forward. And I hate to break it to you, but that's the first thing you have to think about. What would you prefer to do? I often ask my clients, what would you do if you had a magic wand and you could just wave it and have your dream job? What would that look like? What would it feel like? What would it be like? One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that no matter where you might decide to go to work, there's certain basic human needs that we all require for good mental health, good physical health, good emotional health, and good spiritual health. First of all, we need to feel respected, which I believe is the number one reason most teachers are unhappy these days. They don't feel respected. There were days when I certainly didn't feel respected by politicians, by policymakers, by administrators, by people who wouldn't be able to do your job. You don't feel respected. Parents, students don't respect you anymore. We all also have a need for feeling that we're part of a group. We have a human need for love, a feeling of a need for safety. Our physiological needs need to be met. And in a lot of cases, if you've been teaching for a while, some of these things are missing. Certainly your need for respect is missing. Sometimes your need for safety is missing, depending on where you happen to be teaching. What I will tell you from my own personal experience is that if you can work it to make your career and your passion come together, it is a beautiful thing. It's not just a beautiful thing, it's a fabulous thing. Now, it takes work. It takes thought. It takes being honest with yourself. It may take making a few sacrifices in the beginning in order to experience the payoff in the long run. But it will be worth it if you decide that that's what you want to do. You just have to decide, what is your new direction? And then once you've made that decision, there are certain components of a job search that everybody has to know about, understand, consider, and be able to use. Your resume has to be something that will get yourself invited for an interview, and it has to be written in a certain way, using certain elements, crafted to meet the job description. And sometimes you need help with that. Your cover letter. Most people screw up their cover letter by writing one that nobody ever reads. It ends up in the trash. You don't know what you're doing wrong, but I can help you with that. You also need to be aware that if your resume and your cover letter aren't perfect in every way, you will never be considered as a serious candidate. The applicant tracking system will make sure of that. It will kick you out because you've misspelled a word, used the wrong grammar, used the wrong spacing. A variety of things can go wrong when you're depending on the applicant tracking system. You also need to be aware of what your personal brand is. And this is an in-person brand as well as your online brand. More and more employers are looking to find you online to see what kind of person you are. So you have to make sure that your online presence is squeaky clean. You also need to know and understand about the importance of networking and how to interview like a pro. Even with the improved economy, because corporations and companies have learned through necessity to do more with less, the competition for the jobs that are being offered these days is still fierce. And you have to be able to make sure that you are optimizing every element of the job search process. I didn't even mention LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is a crucial part of your online presence. And most people need help with that. They don't even realize the things they've done wrong for their LinkedIn profile, but they need help, and I can help them. I've become an expert on LinkedIn, so I can help you with that. The last thing you have to have during any job search is a positive attitude, because most job searches involve some sort of rejection. And you have to be able to practice persistence and patience, and you have to be willing to not give in to the panic. The panic. What will happen if this doesn't work out? What if I don't get the job that I want? What if I can't make the transition that I want? You can. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to not let yourself succumb to the anxiety, the worry, and the panic. Now, I know it's a lot to juggle. There are lots of things to consider. Your resume, researching companies, preparing for the interviews, filling out the applications correctly. And even if you get offered the job, you have to be willing and able to negotiate a salary, which if you're a teacher, you've never had to do before. Here's what I know for sure. It's your life. You cannot afford to give up. And you owe it to yourself and your family and everyone around you to be living the life you want, not the life you think you have to put up with. You are not a victim. You can be a victor if you just simply decide. So if you're here, it may be that you're ready for a career change. It may be that you've been looking for a while and it hasn't been working out for you, and you just need somebody to help you figure out step by step where you're missing the mark. And you may have come to the realization that you can't do this alone. If you need step-by-step advice, a guide, would you use it if you had it, a system that would help you? If so, then maybe it's time to ask an expert, someone like me, or there are other experts out there. But I offer a 90-day program that will help you to get unstuck and jump started toward the career you really want. And I would love to be your guide. So what I would like for you to do, if you're interested in this, is take a look at some of the testimonials on my website. I'll tell you a little bit about Julie. She was one of my very, very, very first clients. She found me online through LinkedIn, and she contacted me because I was national board certified, and she is too. We had one session, and I set her off on her route toward her doctoral degree, and not one but 2 books. This is my friend Princess Moss. She's the Secretary Treasurer of the National Education Association, former teacher. And she came to me when she needed some help crafting her campaign as a teacher leader in the National Education Association. She shared with me that she wanted some help connecting with her audience. She wanted to tell her story in a more powerful way, and I coached her to do that. And now she's the Secretary Treasurer of the NEA. This is Kathleen. She's also a former client, a teacher, someone who came to me. In her case, she wasn't wanting to leave teaching, but she wanted to leave one part of the country to move to another part of the country. And I had contacts. She was interested in Seattle. And because of my connections with the president, former now president of the Washington Education Association, I was able to gather intel for Kathleen so that she could decide about cost of living and which school division might she want to apply to and where she might want to think about living, all information that she needed before she made a decision about whether or not to transition from the East Coast to the West Coast. This is one of my clients, Adam. He's my favorite child, so to speak, in that he contacted me a little over a year ago. And he said to me, I want to move from the Washington, D.C. area to the West Coast. I would really like to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'd really like to work for Google or a company like them. And I said, okay. So we got to work together. He didn't want to be bothered with his resume, so he paid me extra to rewrite his resume. He also didn't want to be bothered to retweak his LinkedIn profile, so he paid me extra, gave me his password, and I got into his LinkedIn profile and jazzed it up for him. A few months later, he emailed me to say, hey, Kitty, I just wanted to let you know I'm moving the first of the year to San Francisco. I'll be the cybersecurity instructional person for Google starting the first of the year. So I'm really excited about his ability to say what he wanted to do and then stick with it and do it. It took him a few months. Wasn't easy, wasn't quick, but he managed to do it with my help. And then this is my most recent success story. This is Ron. He is the brother of a friend of mine, not a teacher. These last two guys were not teachers. But Ron had been in a career transition for a while before he came to me, and he felt a little stuck. He was trying to get back into government service after leaving, and he was running into some problems with interview questions that were coming up that baffled him a little bit as how to answer them correctly. I helped tweak his LinkedIn profile just a little. It was already pretty good. Helped him. He had 3 or 4 resumes. I helped him hone those down to 1 or 2. And I'm happy to report that it only took him about 6 months, but he started his new job June 13th of 2016 and is now the new Inspector General for the National Endowment of the Arts. So those are some of my success stories, and you can find others on my LinkedIn profile, where I would invite you to take a look at all of the information that is there. I've got a variety of resources that are there for free, along with more testimonials. And on that note, what I'd like to say is thank you for if you've stuck it out with me for this whole entire presentation. Thank you so much for doing that. If you have any questions, I want you to feel free to contact me at kittyboitnott@gmail.com. You can find me at kitty@careermakeover.coachesconsole.com. You can also find me for more information at this website where you happen to be at the moment, which is teachersintransition.com. And at the bottom of the page, after you've completed watching this presentation, you'll see that you can sign up for a consultation, a 50-minute consultation to talk about your specific situation and whether or not I might be able to help you moving forward. The cost of that consultation is $75 for the 50-minute session. We'll do it by phone or Zoom or Skype. And if you were to decide that you want to work with me beyond this consultation, the $75 could be applied toward any additional services that you might decide you need. So on that note, I will offer that if you have questions, please do not hesitate to email me at kittyboitnott@gmail.com. It is my pleasure to offer this presentation to you, and I hope that we can talk soon. Thank you so much for your being here and for your time. At this point, The presentation is done. Thanks.